I'll let you know. It's connecting.
I see.
Okay. I'll let you know. Okay, so we're on. Okay, so I'm gonna give a little interview, Ayla, and we can start. Ok, personas del mundo, si nos ven, pongan en la caja de chat si nos pueden escuchar y ver a la doctora, a mí. Vamos a dar unos minutitos para irnos conectando. So we're gonna give them a couple more minutes, Isla. Bear with us. We're almost starting our amazing interview. So just 2 minutes.
Yeah, get them to grab. I don't know. What would you have at this time of day? Like a. It's hot, right? So you'd have
It's
something
hot.
cold to drink, I suppose, rather than a cup of tea like we would have.
Well, actually, warm drinks make you a little, feel better with the heat. That's funny, but it's true. Okay. Hola, hola, todo bien con el sonido. Okay, Ayla, they're telling us they see us, they listen to us perfectly. So I think we can start our interview. So, gente, muchísimas gracias por conectarse, dueños, dueñas, a nuestra entrevista especial con la doctora Isla Fishburn, que el día de hoy va a compartir muchas cosas importantes para que aprendas cómo hacer que tu perro viva más años mejor y feliz junto a ti. La doctora Isla Fishburn es una eminencia, doctora en biología, en zoología, experta en comportamiento de caninos, ha trabajado muchos años con lobos y el día de hoy nos va a compartir información maravillosa. Ayla, welcome to our YouTube channel. I was just telling people who you are, a little bit of your bio, your amazing bio. And I'm really, really thankful that you had the time in your agenda, in your schedule, to talk to us and to enlighten us with your knowledge and your experience. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you. It's really, it's really beautiful to be here and share this with you, and yeah, and to be asked and to just to kind of meet in this. I always see it like via Zoom. I still try and imagine us all just being in this circle, sitting down and just sharing. So it's really beautiful. Yeah, the power of Zoom. Hey.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Ayla. Well, so Ayla, why don't we start with something very simple but very important? Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? I just told people you are a PhD in biology, zoology. You have a lot of experience working with canines, with wolves, dogs, and holistic knowledge. But why don't you tell us a little bit who is Isla Fishburn?
Oh my goodness, like I love that question. Yeah, who is Isla? Yeah, and yeah, I what really that's a really really good question. What really is coming through to me right now is yeah, the deep kind of combining my expertise in science with indigenous wisdom. I really feel there's a big movement that's happening of understanding life, not just our dogs, not just ourselves, but really understanding the interconnectedness of life, and how we need to understand that to support ourselves and to support our dogs as well. So, wow, what am I? I am a joker. I am a scientist. I am a shamanic practitioner. I am a vibration and frequency. I am full of love for myself and for everybody else, of cheering everybody on and just, yeah, reminding people of how incredible they are as we're on this cocktail and mix of adventure of life to explore what it is to improve our dogs, to improve ourselves, so that we are really better connected, and as we are better connected we have better canines. Yeah, I'm not taking away my education at all, because that's a massive part of who I am, but it's funny that I also don't see that doesn't define me. It's just, yeah, I'm a conservation biologist. I have a massive love for conservation. I have a massive love for nature. I really care about the state of the earth. I really care about the state of the cosmos. I really care about the state of our plants and our waters and our stones and our animals and ourselves. That's really, yeah, my passion, my purpose is to inspire, is to teach and inspire others. So we start with making a better life for our dogs and how, and great timing, here comes Tunkasila to agree.
Oh Tunkasila. Ella es la perrita loba de la doctora Isla.
Perfect timing, perfect timing.
Exactly.
And so we start with I know Tunks, you're agreeing, which is beautiful, but I'm trying to speak to everybody. Yeah.
Can I borrow your mom a little bit?
Okay, I've said what I wanted to say, and so really, it was clear to me that I just want everyone to be as passionate as I am about just conserving Earth, just what that means, and it's quite hard for people to understand when we're talking about, we were just talking before about turtles. But if people like, well, I live in the UK, like, I don't care about turtles. What's that got to do with me? But everything is interconnected. That's what I want people to understand. And really, our dogs get such a bad press still. They're still, an animal that we live with, that we coexist with, but they are still kind of persecuted. They are, these expectations, this pressure, this stress, that what we expect our dog to be, which is just, not even true anyway. That I just feel like as we make those changes for our dogs and really understand what life is about and what that connection is and what our dogs need, then that has a ripple effect of how it creates our intention and our effort for ourselves and the rest of the world. Yeah.
Wow. Bueno, chicos, pues voy a hacer la traducción aquí simultánea, diciéndoles que la doctora Isla, le pregunté, ¿quién es Isla Fishburn? Y ella nos dice que, bueno, primero que nada es una apasionada, entusiasta de la naturaleza, de la interconexión, no solo entre nosotros como humanos y nuestro entorno, sino los animales y todos los seres que existen en ella. Ella ha mezclado su conocimiento científico con conocimiento indígena para poder tener una mejor comprensión del universo, del cosmos y de cómo podemos hacer de este un mejor lugar. La doctora tiene muchos grados académicos, pero lo que dice no me definen, realmente lo que me define es pues mi pasión por la conservación, por enseñar, por inspirar a los demás. También tiene conocimiento de saberes chamánicos, sabe acerca de frecuencia, vibración y muchas otras cosas que vamos a platicar más adelante. La doctora también, uno de sus metas en la vida es que nosotros como seres humanos y los animales podamos tener mejores vidas y una mejor conservación pues de nuestro mundo. Y la hipótesis o de donde ella parte es de que todo está interconectado y eso también obviamente incluye a nuestros perros y a nuestros animales. Okay, Isla, well, so I just told you a little bit about you. It's really exciting for people to know who you are and what you've been doing for many, many years. So, Isla, why don't you tell us a little bit what made you become very passionate about nature, about connection, about animals? What is that, what happened in your life that made you dedicate your life to this?
It's such I love that question. There is a bit of a story behind it. When for as long as I can remember, every birthday and every Christmas when I was a child, I used to always ask for a wolf and a bear. And the wolf and the bear had to be real. So this is the hilarity. So they had to be real, but small enough so that they could fit inside my pocket, so that they could always be with me. And so as a child, I was just like, I do everything that my parents say. I'm a polite child. I do like kind of the chores or things that I've asked, and I'm supposed to be rewarded, right? You get things that you ask for when you do good things. And I'm like, why am I not getting my real life wolf and bear that are like this big? And so as a child, I was a bit like, what else can I do? And then I got a little bit older and was like, oh, okay, that's just not real. Like in some reality, I'm like, it still is real, because I always had this wolf and bear around me. The other part of the story is I also always asked for a fireman's ladder. I asked for a wolf, a bear, and a fireman's ladder.
Oh,
I
wow.
actually can't remember why. I can't remember why I saw the flyers like that, but I did. And yeah, so I've always had this kind of connection to wildlife, and particularly our big predators like my wolf and bear that I've always had since a child, that I just always thought was a thing like everybody had. And yeah, with that, I've always had an interest in Indigenous wisdom, Indigenous teachings, Indigenous culture. Yeah, just how we respect the land, we honour the land, we respect life in all things. And from a very, very early age, from around 8 to 9 years old, I started to do a lot of reading about what I could, just about, yeah, just Indigenous wisdom, Indigenous teachings. And it kind of just created, it spiraled from there of just having, I always sensed a connection to stones. I always sensed a connection to trees, to plants, to just having a knowing that I am part of everything rather than separate to everything. And that wasn't really taught to me by my family. It's just something that I always had. And then when I kind of got a little bit older, so probably a teenager, and then, I would say to my friends, oh, there's a place where I lived locally called the Sandhills. And I was like, oh, should we go to the Sandhills and talk to the stones? And everyone was like that. That's just weird. Like nobody does that. So I just kind of stopped. Really, I just kind of did it on my own. Just did it as my own thing, and then then I got kind of like more into academia, like my university degree, and then my PhD, and that was very kind of more of a separate of looking at the science, looking at the evidence, but I still continued this. This earth-based practice with earth-based teachings, and I then found a shaman in California called Medicine Grizzly Bear. I don't even know if he's still alive now, but yeah, I had some teachings with him. So I've always followed it. Even when I was doing my artwork, when I was doing art college, it was all about symbolism, mythology, more kind of like your traditional Indigenous art. So it's something that I've always had, and I've got to a point in my life where, because I've now followed it very deeply for about 8 years. It like there, everything that is living has a spirit, and so everything that is living is a vibration and frequency. And I don't know how else to say it other than we all are just vibration and frequency. And it's so incredible when you drop into that place of knowing and drop into that place of that true vibration that you are, that I am, that our dogs are, that plants are, etc., etc., that you really feel that interconnectedness. And when we're there, that's when we feel really whole. I think it's just a really I'm just so inspired myself and dedicated to share that and inspire others to live from that place as well, because it's so supportive for ourselves and it's so supportive for all of life.
Wow. Wow, this is super inspiring. Bueno, chicos, pues le pregunté a la doctora, a Isla, pues cómo es que ella se empezó a interesar y se empezó a ser tan apasionada de la naturaleza y de la interconexión. Y bueno, nos cuenta una anécdota muy interesante de cuando era pequeña, que ella todas las navidades, todos sus cumpleaños, siempre estaba obsesionada con pedir un lobo chiquito que cupiera en su bolsa para estar siempre con ella, un oso, en fin, siempre estaba obsesionada y obviamente nunca se lo regalaban porque no era posible. Y ya cuando fue creciendo, ella se dio cuenta pues de que eso no era posible, pero sí era muy posible estar interconectada y con un conocimiento mucho más profundo de la naturaleza y del conocimiento indígena. Le llamaba mucho la atención esta cultura del respeto a la vida, de la vibración, de pues la comunidad, ¿no? Entonces empezó a leer sobre eso. Después también en su familia le reforzaron mucho la parte de que había que respetar la naturaleza, respetar a los demás, y posteriormente decidió estudiar biología, zoología, se empezó a interesar mucho en este mundo científico, pero nunca dejó de lado la parte espiritual, ¿no? Y ella, la doctora Isla, lo que nos dice es que todo tiene un espíritu y todo tiene una frecuencia y una vibración, y que cuando llegas a ese entendimiento y a este lugar, realmente es cuando comprendes y sientes la interconexión que tienes con el mundo, con los demás, con la naturaleza, con los animales, y eso es verdaderamente lo que nos hace sentir plenos. So Ayla, this is super inspiring. I would like to deepen into this idea that how when you realize you're part of everything and that everything has a soul, that's such a deep and beautiful thought. I love the idea you gave us, that that's when you feel whole. That's when you really feel that you have a place in the universe, right? You're not just a product of, whatever, it's not given. You have a place, and you have a journey, that is needed, that people need, that animals need, that the world needs. So what can you tell us about why, I mean, this question is weird, but I would love to know your input on, if we are all interconnected. So me being with my dog is not casualty, it's not whatever, because I picked this puppy and that's it. No. So what's your explanation about why you have a relationship with very specific animals?
You know, it's such a perfect question because you should all jump on, if you've not done so already, jump onto my Facebook profile from the share that I did today. So on a weekend, I always do a weekly share where I go into ceremony with Tunkasila, who you've just seen, and I channel. So I literally go into automatic writing and I just share what it is she wants to share with me. And her post today was all about, yeah, the purpose, or one of the purposes why our dogs are here and why we have this relationship with our dog in this life. And you're absolutely right. On one level, like on a physical level, we are a human. We are a human species, and our dogs are a canine species, and our cats are a feline species. And so there is, in that way, there is an experience that we're all having based on the species that we are. So how we communicate, how we behave, and those responses. But underneath all of that, and this is what I want people to understand, is like everything has a soul, so do our dogs. And so sometimes we forget that, but we're not taught it as well at the same time.
Yeah.
And the importance here is to also remember that because our dogs also have a soul, our dogs also chose to have the experience that they're having. And this can be, we tend to put a lot of it like, oh, I did this wrong for my dog. Oh, I'm such a bad dog guardian. Oh, my poor dog. And in that sense, yes, we're all here having an experience. Like the life that we're having now is like a chapter within a book, because we have been many things and we will be many things. And it's like the things that we were, or the things that our ancestors were 50 years ago, 100 years ago, they were still kind of writing. They didn't have all the answers, and neither do we. We're still like, oh, I'm in this life now to explore further and further so that I know better next time, or I know better for my future generations. Mm-hmm. And it's the same for our dogs. So in that sense of like, we have had an agreement at a time long ago that we've totally forgotten to go, do you know what? We are going to come in this life now as a human, as a dog, and experience what it is we're experiencing. For, again, the point of learning and developing and growing for the collective, for that quantum field. And I don't really know how else to explain it other than it is being the quantum field for every experience that we're having. It's not just for ourselves, it's going in as a collective consciousness. Mm-hmm. And this is why for me, I the way that I live, the way that I work, with my clients and the people that are in my group after my online course, it's even at the point of like, words hold a vibration. The words that we speak to our dogs, the words that we speak to ourselves, the thoughts that we have, that holds a vibration. And so that massively also affects our dogs, it affects our relationship. But in that sense, our dogs have almost had, bear with me, I just need to close the door because there's a bit of noise downstairs. Our dogs have had, this understanding and an agreement, a contract, a soul contract, whatever we want to call it, so that not only are they having an experience themselves, but they're actually here to remind us of living at that true vibration, to remind us of what life is about, to remind us that actually, this is what Tunkasila said in her share this morning. It was just like, there was a time when we and our dogs were exactly the same, and that time was when we were children. Because when we were children, we felt everything for us was like was motion of energy. It was motions of things. We lived from what I class as our true vibration. How Tunkasila shared it was, you lived from your original pattern, your original design. And then what happens, we are surrounded by adults when we're children who no longer live from their original design because they've also been distorted by adults before them, and so we get told about, well, this is what you should think, and this is what you should like, and this is what you should believe about how a dog should be, and this is what you should believe about what a dog should or shouldn't do. And that's just not, it's an element of truth, but it's not the truth. And so the beauty for me, the understanding is actually our relationship with our dog is about what it's like to coexist and live with an animal that is very different to a human. What it's like to live and coexist with an animal that is always, the only way they know how to live is felt sense. It's not thought sense, it's felt sense. All animals are living and responding from the heart, which is a felt sense, which is why they're always so innocent and how they respond. They're saying, hey, I'm showing up and this is me, just like we would have done when we're children. It's like, I don't care what people think, this is me. I haven't got any preconceived ideas about what's right or wrong. But equally, therefore, what our dogs are telling us is about returning home, about returning back to our true vibration. Of Tungasila described it so beautifully, of like, rather than looking in a mirror and sit and asking yourself what you see, look at your dog and ask, wow, what is it that I see my dog about myself? Like, why am I giving myself, how she described it and how I understand it is like, why am I giving my dog such a hard time? Therefore, if I'm giving my dog such a hard time, what is it about myself still where I feel I have to give myself a hard time? What is it about myself that I'm judging? What is it about myself that I'm persecuting? What is it about myself where things need to be perfect? And so this is what I look at in my clients and go, actually, what is showing up in your dog, which is a message for yourself? Because a lot of the time our dogs, even in a physical perspective, our dogs are unwell if they have a physical disease. If you connect to their soul, they're like, do you know what? I'm fine. Like, you're the one stressing out here. I'm absolutely fine. And Tungasila has cancer and I'm connecting with her about that. And she's just like, yeah, and I'm good. My spirit is strong. My body is good. I'm surrounded by love. And she's like, actually, that's what matters. I'm surrounded by love and that's all that matters. But it's a really great reflection of, if I work with clients where they're like, I just want to fix my dog. And I'm like, interesting, like, what is this obsession with fixing things? What is it about yourself where you feel need to be fixed? Like, where does that even come from? Or people are like, I just want the perfect dog. Interesting, why are you putting so much pressure on yourself to have perfection? What does that even mean? And so really for me, it's, yes, understanding our dogs as a canine, how we support them based on their needs as that animal, as a physical animal, but actually go much deeper and looking at their soul, that they are the soul that we are, and how we've come together as soul individuals, but also how they so beautifully show up. Like you say, there is no coincidence at all that the dog that we choose, the dog that chooses us, is with us because it's already aligned, it's already been written, it's already been decided, it's already been agreed. But as a much deeper lesson about how do we return to our true vibration from that.
Oh my God. We could talk for hours here.
I know.
God, it's crazy. Ok, bueno, pues le pregunté a Isla que, porque pensando en este tema de que nada es casualidad, de que todo es frecuencia, que todo es vibración, pues, ¿qué significa que tú, que yo tengamos un perro en específico? No es producto del azar, de la casualidad. Entonces Isla nos dice justamente, no es casualidad que tengas al perro que tienes, no es como tú crees que tú fuiste y lo elegiste, sino que ya estaba escrito, al ser dos seres espirituales, había ya una conexión previa y ya estaba dicho que ibas a estar tú con ese perro, y lo que están viviendo es el camino que tienen que vivir juntos y el camino de aprendizaje es trascendental. La doctora Isla en su Facebook hace interpretaciones todas las semanas de lo que dice su perra Tungasila, la que vieron en estos momentos, y ella, pues bueno, escribe, transcribe, interpreta ese sentir y esa comunicación de su perra sobre este conocimiento holístico. Y bueno, ella nos cuenta que justo lo que nos enseñan los perros que viven con nosotros, los perros que viven contigo, es que nuestros perros nos eligieron, pero tú también lo elegiste en un plano espiritual, y que justamente esto no tiene nada más que ver contigo y tu individualidad, sino que tiene que ver con un plano cuántico. No solo somos nosotros, sino esto tiene que ver con una conciencia colectiva, que eso es lo que embona y lo que engloba todo. También la doctora Isla nos dice que los perros nos dan lecciones maravillosas todo el tiempo de cómo recordarnos a llevar una vida interconectada, no desconectada de quiénes somos, de nuestro verdadero ser, ¿no? Entonces esto es muy bonito. Cuando éramos niños, lo que dice ella es que tenemos una vibración muy parecida a la que tienen los perros, llena de honestidad, de sinceridad. O sea, un niño no tiene tantos filtros mentales, ¿no? Tanto esto sí, esto no, sino que los niños son más honestos, son transparentes, y así son los animales. Por eso también tenemos esta como que equiparamos a veces a los niños con los perros, ¿no? Porque nos recuerdan a esa como inocencia y esa pureza. Entonces, justo lo que hacen los perros cuando viven con nosotros es que nos enseñan a vivir en esa ruta original que estamos destinados, y también nos enseñan a cómo es y a cuestionarnos cómo es vivir con un animal tan diferente. Nosotros somos humanos, ellos son perros, pero a la vez ambos podríamos vivir desde la sensibilidad, no tanto desde lo racional, para al final del día regresar a ese lugar a donde todos estamos destinados de ir. Y otro tema interesantísimo que menciona la doctora es que tu perro es un reflejo de ti. Ya lo hemos hablado en otros videos, de tu perro es un reflejo de tus emociones, de lo que tú eres. A veces queremos corregir una actitud que tiene nuestro perro, cuando en realidad somos nosotros los que estamos preocupados por eso en nosotros mismos y lo estamos proyectando en nuestro perro. Entonces, es algo maravilloso. I was just telling them that it's really beautiful, this idea that we and our dogs or cats or whatever animal you share your life with, we have like a mission together, right? Like a community mission, and they teach us beautiful things. Many people treat dogs as kids, and I understand why, and it's related to what you're saying. It's because it's really cute, to see how animals react, as you said, so honest, so transparent, and kids do that also. So I think that's really beautiful, and I really love this idea of seeing your dog as a guide that reminds you to come back to where you belong, to where you're happy, to where you should go, instead of all this social norms and things we start learning within the years, and that in the end leave us disconnected, right? So basically that's it. So another question I really like to ask you is, I know you've been working a lot with wolves in the past and maybe in the present. I would love if you could tell us a little bit about that. Besides from when you were little and you were really obsessed with wolves, why wolves? And why? I mean, what have wolves taught you? And what is the teachings that you interconnect with dogs? I think that would be very interesting.
Yeah, that's again a really beautiful question, and also you're really good at holding all that stuff that I keep sharing and relating it back. I'm really impressed. Um, yeah, so I think that kind of really, so other than, yes, as a child I've always had this love, this fascination of wolves, but when I was doing my PhD, I really, yeah, towards the end of my PhD, I was like, do you know what? I really want to go into wild carnivore conservation. I want to go into wild canine conservation, and for me, I was like, I don't care if it's in America or Europe. Like, I'm going to be out in the field. I'm going to be out in the wild, like observing like wild wolf groups and collecting data, and so I kind of, because I was at a university, I had access to every academic journal under the sun. So whilst I was writing my PhD, I was printing off as many papers as I could, to like buying as many books as I could, printing off as many papers as I could, to really read everything that I could about wolves, whether it's anything from like mythology and symbolism to ecology, behavior, structure, hunting, like just everything. And the more and more that I read this, the more passionate I was about, wow, they're such an amazing, incredible animal, as all animals are. But I think, as a conservation biologist, it was almost like, it's so sad of how misunderstood that they are, or the conflict that arises. I'm really interested in, in kind of the conflict and coexistence of animals, and them just being such a heavily persecuted predator, such an important predator. But again, as humans, in terms of that divide, when we are the, I always call it like an, we are living in an ecosystem rather than an ecosystem. And for me, everything is an ecosystem. I mean, we are, from that perspective, our dogs are an ecosystem in their own entirety. I'm an ecosystem in my own entirety. But then when we look at it in terms of the macrocosm, now I'm just a cell. I am just one cell, and you are just one cell, and our dogs are just one cell, then all coming together as a whole organism. And I just find that really, I find it really sad that, like our large predators, like in the UK, we used to have wolves in the UK, and then the last one was shot in 1745 or something. It was like a celebration because we've shot the wolves, and all the wolves are now eradicated. Like all of our big predators are now gone, like our lynx, and of course now we have prey population density issues with like your deer and your prey animals. So yeah, that's that. When I was doing my PhD, I was just like, that's it. I'm going to be just out in the fields, just like studying wolves. And that didn't happen. Boo. So that it didn't happen. I kept applying for different postdocs, and there was always someone that had more experience, which is just a thing. So that didn't happen. But an opportunity arose with a wildlife park to be like a wolf researcher for their captive wolves.
Wow.
So I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. Of course, I'm going to do that. And that's kind of then where then I started to have then the practical experience. So I can't even remember for, I don't know, it might have been a couple of months, it might have only been, it definitely was more than a couple of weeks, but for a short length of time, over a few weeks, a couple of months, I interacted with the captive wolves outside their enclosure, just so that I got to know them, they got to know me. And then I remember, it's like it happened yesterday. I remember the first time I was to go into the enclosure with the wolves, and just to kind of try and distract them so it wasn't so intense, a carcass was put in. So and I think it was a deer. I think it was a deer carcass that was put in, and so all the wolves just went straight onto the deer carcass. So I was just in there, just like cool, like they're just at a distance eating their food, and this is really nice to be in the same space with them. And then one of the big black wolves kind of put his head up and clocked me, and he literally, as he got a bit of food and brought his head up and clocked me, and then it was the liver, so he literally just scooped down the liver like a piece of spaghetti and was like, oh, somebody new, and just came, not running, but just kind of trotting towards me. And from that perspective, I knew that, like you saw with Tunkasila when she came in, of just canines like to communicate and lick and greet around the mouth. So I was like, well, that's what I'm going to do with this wolf. So he came up to me, and I just kind of lifted my head up, and he was covered, because he'd just eaten liver, like he was covered in blood, and he just licked all around me, like his tongue went around my throat, and at that point, like the zoo was open. It was quite early in the morning though, and people were like, wow, like my face was like covered in blood. And that was like my first experience of then having that individual like in-person experience. And then from that day on, every day for 3 years, pretty much. I mean, obviously there was some days I was away teaching, but for most days for then 3 years, I went into the enclosure with them, which was the most beautiful experience. And yeah, they taught me so much. I mean, so many tales about actually the peace that they hold, and taught me so much about fun. I think one of the beautiful things was, again, going back to that innocence of never complaining, even on really bad weather days where like the enclosure was just kind of soggy with mud. They were all just, their furs, their coat was really, really wet. Like, there was never that sense of complaint. There was just always a sense of, and so it is, and this is, and just an acceptance. So, if we need to just rest today, we're going to rest. If we're going to play today, we're going to play. But the beauty of the excitement of honouring and welcoming a new day, that was a really beautiful thing for me to witness, where every morning, even though when they'd been sleeping together, so they, some of the group were like wherever they wanted to be in the group, but they were still in an enclosure, they were still in a group, they'd been sleeping together. Every morning when they woke up, they were like, oh, it's you, and oh my goodness, how you doing? And that was a beautiful gift, a beautiful lesson of me, of just like the joy of life, the fun of life, of the excitement of a new day, even if it's just in that sense the same. Of it really taught me so much of how to be and how to see the pleasure of life. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Bueno, pues le pregunté a la doctora Isla justo sobre su experiencia con lobos. Ella ha trabajado durante mucho tiempo con ellos y con caninos. Entonces le decía, bueno, ¿cuál fue tu principal aprendizaje con los lobos y qué te enseñaron? Entonces nos cuenta que, bueno, pues siempre le llamaron la atención desde chica y después trató mucho tiempo de hacer prácticas en su doctorado y postdoctorado en algún espacio con lobos, lo cual no ocurrió, pero sí le ofrecieron un espacio de investigación con lobos en cautiverio. Entonces ella estuvo trabajando con ellos mucho tiempo y se dio cuenta de varias cosas. Primero, que como seres humanos vivimos en vez de en un ecosistema, en un ecosistema, o sea, que tiene que ver con nosotros, solo nosotros somos el centro de todo y cómo la naturaleza te enseña que esto no es así. Por otro lado, le interesan mucho los lobos porque son animales muy incomprendidos que se han cazado hasta erradicarlos de muchos países de Europa, de América. Son animales que son pues estos grandes depredadores y que justo el humano pues ha venido a, digamos, desequilibrar los ecosistemas, matándolos. Ahora dice que en el Reino Unido, de donde ella es, hay pues sobrepoblaciones de las presas, ¿no? Venados, conejos, pájaros, etc. Entonces justo al trabajar con ellos, ella se dio cuenta de que estos lobos y estos animales viven con una pureza y una tranquilidad y una inocencia todos sus días. Dice que cuando ella fue a verlos la primera vez, los vio comiendo una carcasa de venado y justo uno de los lobos pues más grandes, un lobo negro, acabándose de comer un hígado, se acercó a ella y la lamió en la cara, como dándole esta bienvenida y como compartiendo con ella como haciéndolo parte de la comunidad, ¿no? Entonces, lo que nos dice la doctora Isla es que enseñan sobre la paz, sobre la inocencia, sobre la aceptación, ¿no? De no quejarse, aunque están en cautiverio, aunque están, pues, a lo mejor en situaciones adversas, como ellos siempre están felices y amorosos entre su grupo, ¿no? Entonces, esas son algunas de las enseñanzas que Isla tuvo con los lobos. Wow, Isla, this is a super strong story. I bet you have many, many more that I hope you can share with us in the future, because it's really amazing. And you need to be really brave also, because within this disconnection of us as humans with animals, I think that there's fear in between with the disconnection, right? So, I mean, I would be fearful about getting close to wolves, but I know that if that if you get to know them and have their confidence and they know that you're not a threat, they're not going to act as we humans do, right? That you can tell someone is not a threat and you still can leave that person behind or not let that person in your community. So I think that's really, really beautiful. And with dogs, some of the things you shared are very common too. When you see a pack of dogs, like here in Mexico, there are many stray dogs, okay? So in the cities. And I had an anecdote when we organized the TED Talk with Rodney Habib and Dr. Karen Becker. They came to Mexico City for the first time, and they were a little nervous because all they were seeing in the TV and everything, and they just saw is nothing like they put it on TV. It's very, very different, and that people are really nice and friendly, and there's nature and not just desert. So she was really impressed, and she got to see many stray dogs, but she was like, they look kind of happy. They look free. They look like they live in the communities they choose to be. And I don't know, she was saying, I would rather be a stray dog than a neglected dog with a bad owner. So, this reminds me of this anecdote you're telling us, that canines have this very developed sense of community, because, other animals are more solitary. They work differently, but canines are all about community, and that's very beautiful.
Yeah, with our dogs and with most canines, like, because they're social group mammals, they're social group animals. You do have some canine species that actually don't live as such tight group structures as like your wolves and then our domestic dogs. But I absolutely agree. There's, it's like if I'm working with a client who's their dog, might not be able to cope with many people and many of the dogs and many stimuli, and they're like, oh, but all I want to do is be able to take my dog down the beach and let it run off lead. I'm like, okay, that's what you want. Your dog's not sat at home going, oh, I really wish I could just run on the beach. Like, so our street dogs, our feral dogs, our wild dogs, they're not sitting there in the field going, oh, I really wish I had a human guardian right now to love me. Like that. That's that's not what they're doing. So you're right. They're happy. They're fun. As I say, they are not conditioned by the human mind because they haven't got a human mind. So they are present. They show up. They are innocent. They're authentic. They're like, wow, this is my life. And as long as I don't feel under threat, as long as I'm not carrying some sort of incredible infection, then why would they be feeling and responding any different? And it's, sometimes we make that mistake, and I'm not sure it's the same in Mexico, but certainly in the UK, where a lot of dogs are being kind of brought over from like Romania and Cyprus, and some dogs are being brought over because their quality of life is not good at all, but some are being brought over just because they're like, oh, this dog was on the streets, therefore it couldn't be happy because of course this dog wants to be loved by a human, and actually the dog can't cope. The dog's like, actually, I want to just take me back to being outside, being a wild animal. Like, I was coping fine. And so I think it is, again, but it again goes back to that message of what is it about ourselves? What is it about ourselves where we're feeling this need, this urge, this desire to help another that looks helpless, that might not actually even be helpless? Like, what does that teach us about ourselves?
Yeah, that's very, very controversial. I'm totally agree with you. Yeah, it's a complex topic, but
Yes.
definitely there are animals and dogs that they're fine by themselves, and others are not. It depends
Yes.
on the case. But yeah, this is really interesting. Now, Ayla, regarding food, I mean, talking about connection, talking about the nourishment that a community gives, talking about that every single being has a soul. What can you tell us a little bit about food and dogs? Because in the end, we're all dog owners, dog guardians, and this channel and this community is basically what we do is we teach pet parents on how to give their dogs better, longer lives. But the first step for us is to change the diet, okay, to a raw diet, a natural diet. So what can you tell us a little bit about the importance of a biologically appropriate diet for our dogs?
Wow. Yeah. What a great, it's, oh, such a great question, because that in itself is so complex, but it doesn't, and that, it doesn't need to be. And I think, even before I started working with wolves, it just made sense to me that a canine's a predator, so it's gonna eat like meat from a prey animal. I had a rabbit as a child. My rabbit is a prey animal. It's gonna eat vegetation. When I went from working with wolves to more working with dogs, I was so surprised that there was this shock horror system about oh, what do you mean feeding raw to a dog? I was so naive, because I was like, well, I really was, and really, from the greatest of respect, I was so naive in assuming the amount of information that a dog guardian knew, that now I realise that they just don't know. And again, that's no judgment. It is just that's just what it is. So, okay, great. That's one of my jobs. That's why I'm here. But really surprised me. But then it surprised me even more of just not only the debate and controversy, but actually the anger, the argument, the defensiveness that comes with it, that we're still in now. We're in this huge, it is almost like, I feel like you're in Lord of the Rings or something, that you're on this battle. But for me, it just makes total sense, because, we're a vibration, we're a frequency. So the words that we speak can raise our vibration, can lower our vibration. It can inspire, it can tire. The thoughts that we have can inspire, it can tire. the food that we eat can raise our vibration or lower our vibration, because everything holds a vibration, everything holds a frequency. So we are a living being. Our dog's a living being. We are a living being because of the cells that create us, that becomes that ecosystem. So every cell in itself is also an ecosystem that also has its own, not human brain, but has its own little brain, has its own little chemical factory, has its own little vibration that communicates to the entire product, the entire being that we are. And for these cells to function correctly, they need to have, for these cells to function correctly in terms of the vibration that they are, they need to be receiving vibration from outside to be put in, to be fed more. And I've understood that for a long, long time. And for me, that's why I don't understand where when we are feeding nothing, when we're eating nothing but a fresh, whole diet, a wholesome diet where the food hasn't been adulterated, where the food hasn't been transformed in that sense, then we are feeding for vibrational health. And vibrational health is cellular frequency. Vibrational health is what makes us, what shapes us into then a matter. This is the whole thing when we look at vibration. When we vibrate a particular way, we then become a mass. There's these beautiful studies that literally look at corn flour mixed with water that is then played, different music is played to, and you'll see like some of them create like these almost like little human bodies. So it gives you an understanding of like, that is how vibration creates matter. That's why words create matter. Anything that is formed as a vibration creates matter. It's taking the formless into a form. And also with that, we are, for me, it's like, it's not even about what should we feed our dogs, it's what should we feed our dog cells. Then going deeper, it's not even what should we be feeding our dogs an ecosystem, it should be what should we be feeding our dogs, the ecosystem that's within our dog's ecosystem when it comes to the microbiome. So that's why everything for me is an ecosystem, and that's why for me, I also have been trained and taught ecosystem stability, which I love the concept of ecosystems. When we talk about the microbiome, that being an ecosystem, we then can look at ecosystem stability in terms of the richness, the diversity that is there. And when there's not enough richness or diversity, it means that there's a whole lot of space for invaders to come through, for intruders to come through, because those niches is what they're taught, what they're referred to, are unoccupied. So the richer the microbiome and the diversity of the microbiome is then supporting the dog's ecosystem for its own stability as well. And where that's going to come through is, again, wholesome, fresh diets. Now, there are some instances where I'm going to say for some dogs, like if we have a dog that is unwell at a particular time, when Tunka Seela was recovering from like an operation with her cancer, I took her completely off raw food, not because of like, the bacteria, but because raw food takes more energy to digest. So at that time, I want her body to focus on health. I want her body to focus on the energy goes into healing, for skin repair, so I'm gonna make food for her that is still fresh and wholesome, but is not raw. So I did lightly cooked food, I did stews, things that you think actually, when a wolf regurgitates for a sick wolf, when a wolf regurgitates for a wolf cub, when a dog regurgitates for a pup, it's kind of like, it's like a warm soup, it's like a warm broth. So it's partially digested. That's why when we're unwell, we're like, give me some soup, because when we're unwell ourselves, it's like, give me something that's kind of already been broken down a bit, but it's still kind of fresh. So there are times when I'm like, do you know what, this dog in question is probably going to be better on a fresh food diet that is cooked or lightly cooked rather than a full raw food, because it's the energetics of the dog, it's the energy that it takes to digest that raw food. And so that's why food for me is such an incredible, exciting subject. But behind that there is I question of why would we not be feeding a whole fresh food diet, whether it is a raw food diet. For most dogs, yes, a raw food diet, but for some, there are times when I would kind of make it more of a cooked diet. But equally, like, why are we not, like we just said before we started the live, like, processed food, kibble, it was made in the 1940s. Like, our dogs are the species canine is like over 10 million years old. Our dogs as domestic animal are tens of thousands of years old. Kibble was made in the 1940s. In terms of evolution, that is not deep time. That is not that long. We know from human studies, and I know there's like, you can't compare a human to a dog. In terms of cellular health, you absolutely can. We are all cellular beings. Our cells are the same. We know from human studies that having processed food, and I know people are like, well, it wasn't balanced. the processed food for our dogs is not balanced until they put on that mixer, they put on that pre-mixer so that everything does become balanced.
Yeah.
But we know if we have processed food ourselves, that yes, if we're a healthy being, like, don't get me wrong, I sometimes like chocolate and sometimes I like crisps, and every now and again, I might have the odd takeaway. When our body is healthy, then every now and again your body's like, do you know what? It's actually, my liver's going to be a little bit more sluggish. My energy's going to feel a little bit more flat, even if I can recognize it or not. But constantly feeding that system with this processed food, that is a lot for the cells to be dealing with. That's a lot for the body to be dealing with. And we know it creates ill health. We know it affects the brain. We know it affects the vagus system. We know it affects, like, nothing is separate. So then looking at our dogs, the nervous system is connected to the immune system. The immune system is connected to the digestive system. The digestive system is connected to the whole system of the dog. Nothing is separate. So it has a knock-on effect in every way. And so that's why I'd say, like, you know, why would you feed a raw food diet? I'm like, why would you not? Or why would you feed a fresh food diet when we get this easy, convenient, you know, created food in a bag? Why would you? Like, when you understand, and I don't mean that from a place of disrespect, because, you know, there are many of us, like, you know, if it's like, if I know nothing about horses, if I'm going to go off and get a horse, there's going to be many things that I just don't know, and I'm going to do my best. We are all doing our best here. But when we are starting to understand this knowledge, I'm like, why would you not?
Right.
Diet is such a big part of longevity. We know in terms of even telomeres, these little caps that form at the end of chromosomes, our dog's life expectancy is lower than ours because their telomeres and cells are shorter than ours. That's what also determines life expectancy. But what influences life expectancy is stress. And for me, stress is stress. Nutritional stress is still stress on the body. Emotional stress is still stress on the body. Immune system stress is still stress on the body. And our lives, and therefore our dogs' lives, because they live in it and live with us, are full of immune system stress, emotional distress, digestive distress. This influences the rate at which the telomeres shorten more. So we are having an effect on our dog's life expectancy. If I can improve that through what I'm feeding my dog, then absolutely I'm going to go down that route that is wholesome, that is fresh. It's something that is living, that communicates to something that's living. Like, living cells need living energy, and processed food is not live. It's stagnant, it's dead, it's inert. I don't want to feed something that's inert into myself. I'm not going to feed something that's inert into another living being that I'm promoting cellular health. I want those cells to vibrate at the right frequency.
Yeah, wow. Guys, this is an amazing explanation for you. I'm gonna say it in Spanish. So, um, le pregunté a la doctora cuál es su input, su información, su punto de vista acerca de la alimentación de los perros y en general, ¿no? O sea, hablando de que todos estamos conectados, de que todo es vibracional. Pues, ¿qué deberían de comer los perros? Y ella parte de este punto muy interesante que dice, todo parte de las células. Las células son estos ecosistemas por sí mismos que son los que hacen posible la vida, el cuerpo, el flujo de energía en nuestros cuerpos y en nuestros perros. Y las células necesitan también de alimentación, ¿no? Y la alimentación ideal para una célula definitivamente no es alimento que te cuesta demasiado trabajo de procesar, ¿no? Tiene que ser un alimento natural, variado, que justamente es lo que va a darle a las células la posibilidad de reproducirse y de crecer. Entonces, lo que dice Isla es que con nuestros perros, toda la vida, centurias, miles de años, han comido alimentación natural y desde los años 40 se inventan las croquetas, el alimento seco y procesado. ¿Qué es lo que pasa? Dice, yo tengo a mi perrita que tiene ahorita cáncer. Cuando la acabaron de operar, decidí darle una dieta más o menos cocida, o sea, sí natural, fresca, pero un poco cocida. Porque la dieta cruda completamente requiere más energía del cuerpo. Y yo quería que sus células, su energía se fuera hacia esa parte de sanar la parte de la operación y no tomar tanto tiempo de digestión. Entonces, todo tiene que ver con el trabajo que le damos al cuerpo. El estrés es uno de los factores más importantes que definen la longevidad, ¿no? Tanto en humanos como en animales, y eso está incluso en el DNA, en los cromosomas. Y lo que Isla dice es, ¿por qué daríamos a nuestros perros alimento que los va a estresar, que les va a dar más trabajo y que realmente no los está nutriendo igual? en cambio de una dieta natural que es mucho más fácil de digerir, de aprovechar. ¿Por qué les daríamos una dieta completamente inerte, no viva, cuando las células necesitan alimento vivo? Otra de las cosas que hice es cuando ella le da la dieta semicocida a su perra, es que decía, bueno, también los caninos hacen eso, regurgitan la comida a sus cachorros. Y esa es una forma también de darles alimento ya semi-procesado, es decir, semi-digerido, para que ellos lo puedan consumir más fácil. Y es como cuando tú quieres un caldo o algo, una sopa, algo muy ligero que te haga sentir mejor. Entonces, con los perros es exactamente la misma lógica, es esta parte de darle al cuerpo lo que necesita realmente alineado a su naturaleza. So yeah, I totally agree with you. This topic with kibble and with processed foods is really it's really deep and really interesting, and it has to do again with this connection. It has to do with, oh, I have no time to cook, so I'm gonna go buy, like you said, the takeaway food and the kibble for my dog because I have so many things to do in my day that I can't give my time to cooking. It's not important, right? So that disconnection is what makes this growth in cancer, in diabetes, in many other diseases that in the past they weren't so common. And that's basically due to our lifestyle. So basically, we're talking here about choices, right? About consciousness, about decisions, basically. So,
Yes.
so Isla, we're running out of time. I'm really sad. I'm really sad. We need to repeat this really soon.
Yeah.
I just have a final question for you, and that I think you can share a lot with our audience. Basically, Isla, in a couple of words, what can we do as pet parents or dog owners to make them live better, longer lives? From your point of view, from this very beautiful, holistic way of thinking you have.
You know, oh my goodness, and because when you ask that question, I'm like, oh, this. Yeah, and you know, I feel one of the things that I share really deeply, and I really mean it from a deep kind of place of unconditional love for all, is there is nothing to fix because you and your dog are perfect as you are.
Oh, okay.
And I'm going to expand on that a little bit more, but it's just, you know, we are plagued. Yeah, just in the way that I work with my clients and my dog clients, my human clients, is we are so plagued into believing and giving ourselves such a hard time that vibrationally we therefore give our dogs such a hard time as well. We look for things that aren't there. We look for things that should be better or should be improved or are not right. And I'm like, just once we go back to that true vibration that we are, we actually realize everything is perfect. And so for me, it's, do you know what? There's nothing to fix. There is nothing to fix because everything is perfect. And actually, one of the things that I say to my clients is, do you love yourself? And most clients like that, no, because how vain do you have to be?
Yeah.
But I'm like, no, from a place, honestly, because when you're living from that place of true vibration, you come from a place of true deep compassion for yourself and others, with an understanding, particularly with humans, that when someone is maybe doing something that is unfair, unjust, unkind, or whatever word we want to put to it, we actually understand it's because they're not living from that true vibration. Right. And that's what I want to bring back. When we all start to come back to that true vibration, that's when we will have that coherence. That's when we will have a much easier way of interacting, with communicating, with connecting, with actually seeing what life is truly about. Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. Bueno, pues le hice una pregunta final a la doctora Isla, justo, ¿qué podemos hacer para que nuestros perros tengan vidas más largas, más sanas y más felices? Entonces ella me decía, mira, hay muchas cosas que decir, pero lo más importante es que no hay nada que arreglar. Las cosas son como deben ser, las cosas están en el lugar que deberían estar, todo es perfecto en este orden, ¿no? Entonces, justo lo que nosotros como personas debemos de buscar es vivir en congruencia y en conciencia de esta vibración, de esta realidad vibracional. Y cuando estás en ese mundo viene la compasión, ¿no? Y lo que dices, bueno, cuando alguien, por ejemplo, te hace algo, cuando tú entiendes esto desde la compasión, te das cuenta justo de que esa persona que te hizo algo, alguna injusticia, algún daño, no está viviendo justamente desde la compasión y desde su vibración verdadera, ¿no? Entonces, lo que dice la doctora es, vamos a regresar a nuestra vibración verdadera, vamos a regresar a este mundo espiritual, vamos a conectarnos y eso va a hacer que nuestra interacción, tanto con nuestros perros como con las personas, sea mucho mejor. Ayla, this has been a delightful, delightful
Oh,
conversation. I really hope we can make it again.
yes.
And thank you so much. I am beyond words. I'm really happy. And guys, Ayla will be one of our guests in Manada Uno. She is going to give a master class about all of these topics, about this really deep knowledge. So really, if you want to join, if you want to take Dr. Isla master class, all you need to do is click on the link below, and we'll take you there. So Isla, again, thank you so much. We could talk for hours. You're an amazing human being, and thank you for all you share, for this transparency, this humbleness. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I don't know if you have any final words, anything you would like to add.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, well, I absolutely agree. There's yeah, could talk about this stuff for hours. Yeah, what do I want to add? What do I want to fill into? I'm gonna say, yeah, yeah, just each day stop and ask yourself what vibration you want to live from, and to tell yourself you want to live from your highest vibration.
Wow, wow. I love it. Ok, palabras finales de Isla. Lo que dice es, todos los días tómate un minuto para pensar desde qué vibración eliges llevar tu vida ese día. Y bueno, pues vas a tener una realidad completamente diferente. Ayla, again, thank you so much. We'll be seeing each other soon during the masterclass. And guys, feel free to follow Dr. Ayla. We're gonna put the links of her Facebook and her website so you can contact her and see the amazing things Dr. Ayla is doing. Ayla, again, thank you so much. I hope you
You're
have a
welcome.
great evening. And, gente, dueños, muchísimas gracias por compartir con nosotros esta maravillosa entrevista. Vamos a dejar los links abajo si quieres sumarte a la clase especial que la doctora Isla va a dar en Manada 1. Te dejo el link abajo y también los links de la doctora. Si quieres seguirla y ver todo lo que está haciendo, ella tiene otros cursos, otras clases, así que vas a tener toda la información en unos minutos abajo. Gracias por estar aquí. Thank you again, Isla, and I hope to see you very soon.
Yes, thank you so much. Mwah. Many blessings. Bye.